The air felt wrong before I saw anything. I'd cut through that alley 100 times, past the dumpsters and chain link, through the shortcut that saved me 5 minutes on my walk to the corner store. The brick duplex on Maple Street had always been quiet. Background. Forgettable. But that morning, something had changed in the silence. It was the kind of quiet that makes your skin prickle, the kind that comes right before you find something you weren't meant to see. I slowed my pace without meaning to, my sneakers scuffing against cracked asphalt. The sun was barely up, turning the frost on the grass into tiny diamonds of light. That's when I saw the crate. Not trash, not donation, not forgotten, placed. It sat too perfectly against the brick wall, tucked just out of sight from the main street but visible enough if you knew where to look. Metal. Industrial. The kind used for transport, not comfort. Rust bled from the corners where moisture had settled overnight. I stopped walking. My first instinct was to keep going. Leave it for someone else, someone official, someone whose job it was to deal with things left in alleys. But my feet wouldn't move, because the crate wasn't empty. Inside was a Pitbull, gray and white, broad-chested and muscular in the way that makes people cross the street. A pink collar circled his neck, bright, almost cheerful, like someone had just bought it. But everything else about him screamed wrong. He wasn't pacing, wasn't whining, wasn't doing any of the frantic things abandoned dogs do. He was sitting upright, completely still, watching me with an intensity that felt deliberate. I checked my phone. 6:12 a.m. The grass around the crate was white with frost. Stiff, frozen, which meant he'd been here all night. In this, alone. Jesus, I whispered. His ears flicked forward at the sound of my voice, but nothing else moved. Not his head, not his body. Only his eyes followed me as I edged closer, my breath clouding in the freezing air. My hands were already reaching for my phone again, dialing animal control, but I couldn't look away from him. There was something unnatural about the way he held himself. Too controlled, too precise. This wasn't a dog in shock. This was a dog who had been told to stay. I crouched low, trying to make myself smaller, less threatening. The wire floor of the crate pressed into his paws, leaving indentations in the pads. No blanket, no water, no sign anyone had thought about his comfort for even a second. "Hey, buddy," I said softly. "Are you okay in there?" His eyes never left mine. Dark brown, clear, intelligent, and utterly, devastatingly patient. That's when it hit me, the thing that made my stomach turn. He wasn't waiting to be rescued. He was waiting for orders. Before we find out what Chili did that shocked everyone, I need your help with something. My fiancé bet me we can't hit 1,000 subscribers in 1 week telling stories like this. Stories about loyalty that deserves better. He thinks the algorithm only loves drama and chaos. Let's prove him wrong. If this story moved you even a little, hit that subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. Let's show him that humanity still clicks for the right reasons. Now, back to that alley. By the time the animal control van pulled up, I'd already started piecing together what I thought happened. Someone couldn't keep him, panicked, dumped him in the middle of the night and drove off. It was cruel, yes, but explainable. Understandable even in the worst way. I was wrong. Because what the security footage from the corner store across the street showed us changed everything. It wasn't abandonment. It was something far more calculated. And what this dog did during those hours alone in the dark, waiting in that crate while the temperature dropped below freezing, that's what shocked every single person who saw the tape. His name, we later learned, was Chili. But the people who left him there never bothered to tell us that. The officer from Animal Control arrived in 12 minutes. I counted every one of them while I stayed crouched by that crate, my knees aching against the frozen ground, my breath coming out in white puffs that dissolved into nothing. Chili never looked away from me. Not once. Officer Martinez stepped out of the van with the slow, measured movements of someone who'd done this too many times. Mid-40s, graying at the temples, the kind of tiredness that settles into your bones after years of seeing what people do when they think no one's watching. "How long's he been here?" she asked, her voice low and even. "All night, from the looks of it." I gestured at the frost. "Maybe longer." She knelt beside me, and I watched Chili's eyes shift, just barely, to track her approach. His body remained perfectly still. No tail wag, no cowering, no reaction at all except that microscopic adjustment of focus. Martinez noticed it too. I saw her pause, her hand hovering near the crate latch. "Easy does it, big guy," she murmured. She pulled out her phone, took photos from multiple angles. The crate, the collar, the frost patterns on the metal, the way his paws pressed against the wire floor, leaving small indentations that must have hurt after hours of standing. Because he had been standing. That much was clear from the way his legs trembled. Not from fear, but from exhaustion. From muscles held taut for so long they'd forgotten how to relax. "No water bowl," Martinez said quietly. "No blanket. No note. Who does this?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "People who don't want to be found." She stood, brushing frost from her knees. "Let's get him out." The latch clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud in the morning stillness. I expected him to bolt, to scramble toward freedom the second the door swung wide. That's what every rational part of my brain said would happen. That's what should happen. Chili didn't move. Martinez pulled the door fully open, metal scraping against metal. Cold air rushed into the crate, colder somehow than the air outside it. She stepped back, giving him space, giving him permission. Still nothing. "Come on, buddy," I said softly. "You're free. You can come out now." His ears swiveled toward my voice, but his body stayed locked in place. Alert, attentive, waiting. And then, slowly, with the kind of deliberation that made my skin crawl, he stood. Not rushed, not relieved, mechanical. His muscles bunched and released as he rose to his full height, shoulders squared, head level. The pink collar caught the early morning light, absurdly bright against his gray coat. He took one step forward, then stopped, right at the threshold of the open door, one paw inside the crate, one paw out. "What's he doing?" I whispered. Martinez's face had gone very still. "I don't know," because Chili wasn't looking at us anymore. He'd turned his body, positioned himself at an angle, so that he stood between the open crate and the alley beyond. His gaze fixed on the gap between the dumpster and the chain-link fence. The path someone would take if they were approaching from the street. He was blocking it. "He's guarding," Martinez said, and something in her voice made me go cold in a way the frost hadn't managed. "He's guarding the crate." "From what?" "There's nothing. That's not the point." She pulled out her radio, pressed the button. "Yeah, this is Martinez. I'm gonna need a behavioral specialist at the Maple Street location. And someone to pull security footage from the area. This isn't standard abandonment." It took 20 minutes to coax Chili into the transport van. 20 minutes of soft voices and patient waiting, of letting him decide when he was ready, of watching him check and recheck the alley behind him like he expected someone to appear, like he'd been told they would. When he finally stepped into the van, he didn't curl up or collapse the way most rescue dogs do. He sat, upright, facing the rear doors, still watching, still waiting. I stood there long after the van pulled away, long after the sound of the engine faded into the morning traffic. The empty crate sat against the brick wall, door hanging open, frost beginning to melt in the weak sunlight. Something about it looked obscene now, violated, like evidence at a crime scene. I pulled out my phone and took a photo. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I knew, even then, that this was going to be one of those stories that stayed with you, that burrowed under your skin and made a home there. The alley felt different now, smaller, darker even in daylight. I walked over to the crate and crouched down, peering inside. The wire floor was clean, no blood, no injury. But there were small marks where his claws had gripped the metal, over and over in the same spots, like he'd stood in the exact same position for hours, like he'd been told to stand there, and had obeyed. My phone buzzed. A text from Martinez. Corner store has cameras. Pointed right at the alley. Owner's pulling footage now. I typed back. Let me know what you find. But I already knew, in the way you sometimes know things before your brain catches up, that whatever we found on that footage was going to be worse than abandonment. Because abandoned dogs panic. Abandoned dogs cry. Abandoned dogs do everything in their power to escape. Chili had done none of those things. I stayed in that alley for another 10 minutes, trying to make sense of it. The morning had fully broken now, bringing with it the sounds of a neighborhood waking up. Car doors slamming, voices calling to each other, the distant hum of traffic. Life moving on like nothing had happened here. But something had happened. I looked at the crate one more time, at the perfect placement of it against the wall, at the way someone would have had to crouch down and position it just so. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't panic. This was planned. And that raised a question I couldn't shake, couldn't ignore, couldn't stop turning over in my mind as I finally forced myself to walk away. If Chili had been trained well enough to stay in that crate all night, through the cold, through the fear, through whatever his instincts must have been screaming at him, then why? Why teach a dog that kind of obedience? And more terrifying, what else had he been trained to do? What else had he been trained to do? The question followed me home, sat with me through breakfast I couldn't eat, lingered while I tried and failed to focus on anything else. At 2:47 p.m., Martinez called. You're going to want to see this, she said. No preamble. No small talk. The shelter. How soon can you get here? I was already grabbing my keys. The Riverside Animal Shelter occupied a low brick building on the east side of town, tucked between a laundromat and an empty lot where weeds grew through cracked concrete. I'd driven past it 1,000 times without really seeing it, the way you stop noticing things that are always there. Today I saw everything. The faded paint on the sign, the security camera mounted above the entrance, the chain-link kennels visible through the side windows, each one holding a different story of human failure. Martinez met me at the front desk. Dark circles had appeared under her eyes in the hours since I'd seen her, and she clutched a tablet like it contained something toxic. Where is he? I asked. Intake room. He's. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He's physically fine. No injuries, no frostbite. Mild dehydration. But Herlinda, she'd never used my first name before. Something's wrong with this dog. Wrong how? Come see for yourself. She led me through a corridor that smelled of disinfectant and wet fur, past kennels where dogs barked and whined and pressed their noses through the chain link, desperate for attention. Normal dogs. Scared dogs. Dogs who wanted to be seen. The intake room was at the end of the hall. Through the observation window I saw Chili. He stood in the far corner of the holding kennel, his body angled toward the door, that same deliberate positioning I'd seen in the alley. A metal bowl of water sat untouched in the center of the kennel. A bowl of food beside it equally ignored. How long has he been like that? I whispered. 4 hours. Martinez pulled up something on her tablet. Watch. She pressed play on a video file. The timestamp read 10:23 a.m. In the video, a shelter tech, young guy, early 20s, gentle hands, approached the kennel with a leash. He spoke softly, moved slowly, did everything right. Chili's eyes tracked him with that same unsettling precision I'd seen in the alley. The tech opened the kennel door. On the screen, I watched myself lean forward unconsciously, expecting the dog to rush out, to seek comfort, to do something. Chili took one step forward, then planted himself directly in the doorway. not blocking the tech from entering, blocking the hallway from whatever might come down it. Jesus, I breathed. It gets worse, Martinez said. She fast-forwarded to 11:15 a.m., different tech. Same approach. This time they tried coaxing him with treats, with toys, with everything the training manual recommended. Chili remained motionless. Not defiant. Not aggressive. Just waiting. He won't eat, Martinez said quietly. Won't drink. Won't lie down. Dr. Reeves, our vet. She's never seen anything like it. It's like he's on duty, I finished. The words hung in the air between us. Can I go in? I asked. Martinez hesitated. He's not aggressive. Hasn't shown any signs of it. But he's also not responsive. Not the way we'd expect. I want to try. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Slow movements. If he shows any stress signals, you back out immediately. She handed me a key card. My hand shook as I swiped it across the reader. The lock clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud, too final. I pushed the door open slowly. Every muscle in my body tensed for a reaction that never came. Chili's eyes found mine immediately. That same dark, intelligent gaze. That same patient intensity. I stepped inside and eased the door closed behind me. Hey, buddy, I said softly. Remember me? From this morning. His ears swiveled forward. A sign he'd heard me, recognized something. But his body remained locked in position. I could see the slight tremor in his back legs now, the way muscles quivered from being held rigid for too long. You must be exhausted, I continued, keeping my voice low and even. You can rest now. You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you. Nothing. I crouched down, making myself smaller, less threatening. The water's right there if you're thirsty. And that food, it's yours. You don't have to ask permission. Still nothing. But then, so subtle I almost missed it, his weight shifted. Just barely. A microscopic redistribution that suggested he'd heard me, understood me, and was considering whether he was allowed to comply. It's okay, I whispered. You can move. You can drink. You can. The door behind me opened. Chili's entire body snapped to attention, muscles bunching, every ounce of focus redirecting to the hallway beyond. Not aggressive, not protective of me, assessing, calculating, guarding. Dr. Reeves stepped in, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands that had probably saved hundreds of animals. She took one look at Chili and stopped cold. He's been trained, she said quietly. Protection work. Maybe personal security. Maybe. She trailed off, but I heard what she didn't say. Maybe something worse. Can you help him? I asked. Physically? Yes. Psychologically? She shook her head slowly. This kind of conditioning, it doesn't just go away. It's wired into him now. Someone took his natural loyalty and weaponized it. We left the kennel together, and I watched through the observation window as Chili resumed his position. Same corner, same angle, same vigilant stillness. The footage from the corner store, I said. You mentioned it earlier. What did it show? Martinez's jaw tightened. That's why I called you. She led me to a small office where a laptop sat open on the desk. The screen paused on a grainy black and white image. I could make out the alley, the dumpster, the brick wall. The timestamp read 9:48 p.m. This is from last night, Martinez said. Watch what happens. She pressed play. For 30 seconds, nothing moved. Then a pickup truck pulled into frame, headlights cutting through the darkness. Two figures emerged, too distant and pixelated to identify, but their movements were clear, calm, methodical. They opened the truck bed, pulled out the crate, carried it to the exact spot against the wall where I'd found it hours later. One figure, the larger one, opened the crate door. The other led Chili out of the truck. not dragging him, not forcing him. Chili walked willingly. They guided him into the crate, closed the door, checked the latch, and then the larger figure did something that made my blood run cold. He crouched down, eye level with the crate, and pointed, deliberately, specifically, toward the street. Even on the grainy footage, I could see Chili's body respond. Straightening, focusing, locking into position. Stay. The command was invisible, silent, but I felt it in my bones. The figures got back in the truck. The headlights swept across the alley one final time, and then they were gone. Chili never moved from the position they'd left him in. Martinez stopped the video. The office felt too small suddenly, the walls too close. Couldn't breathe right. He wasn't abandoned, I said. No. He was stationed. Martinez nodded slowly. And that's not even the worst part. She fast-forwarded the footage. 2:17 a.m. The alley was dark, empty, frozen. Keep watching, she said. At 2:19, a figure appeared from the left side of the screen. A man walking unsteadily. He approached the crate. And Chili, trapped, cold, alone, did exactly what he'd been trained to do. At 2:19, a figure appeared from the left side of the screen. A man walking unsteadily. He approached the crate. And Chili, trapped, cold, alone, did exactly what he'd been trained to do. The man on the footage moved like someone who'd had too much to drink or too little sleep. His path wobbled, uncertain, until he noticed the crate against the brick wall. He stopped. Even through the grainy security camera, I could see the moment of recognition, of opportunity. An abandoned dog meant a payday, bait dog, breeding stock, or just something to sell to the first person who'd pay. He moved closer, reached for the latch. Inside the crate, Chili rose. Not frantically, not desperately, deliberately. The man's hand froze an inch from the metal. Watch his posture, Martinez said quietly, leaning over my shoulder. Chili had positioned himself in the exact center of the crate, body squared toward the door. His head was level, ears forward. In the infrared glow of the camera, I could see his eyes, locked on the stranger with absolute focus. No barking, no growling, no sound at all, just presence. The man rattled the wire, testing. Chili didn't flinch, didn't break eye contact. 10 seconds passed. 20. The man stepped back, looked around as if expecting someone to appear. Then he turned and disappeared back into the darkness. His unsteady gait somehow faster than before. Chili sat back down, facing the street, resumed his watch. He defended the crate, I whispered, even though escaping would have saved him. Martinez nodded slowly. That's not survival instinct. That's training. Dr. Reeves wanted to run a full physical examination, but Chili wouldn't let her approach. Not with aggression, he never showed a tooth, never raised his hackles. But every time someone entered his kennel, he positioned himself between them and the door, body tense, eyes tracking every movement. It's like he thinks he's protecting us, Dr. Reeves said, frustration bleeding into her normally calm voice. But from what? We were standing in the observation room again, watching Chili through the window. 3 hours had passed since I'd first arrived at the shelter. The afternoon light slanting through the high windows had turned golden, warm. Inside the kennel, Chili stood in the shadows. We need to sedate him, Dr. Reeves continued. Get a proper look at him. But I hate to do it without understanding what we're dealing with first. What do you mean? She pulled up a chart on her tablet. During intake, I managed to get close enough for a visual assessment. He's got scars, Herlinda. A lot of them. The screen showed a crude diagram of a dog's body, marked with red lines and circles. They covered his flanks, his shoulders, his chest. These aren't from neglect, Dr. Reeves said, zooming in on one cluster. They're too precise, too deliberate. This one here, She pointed to a mark along his ribcage. That's from a prong collar, probably used incorrectly or too tightly. These along his shoulders? Consistent with weight-pulling training. Weight pulling, building muscle mass, strength conditioning. It's not illegal by itself, but combined with these, she swiped to another set of marks. It suggests a specific training regimen. My stomach turned. For what? That's what worries me. She set the tablet down. I've called in a behavioral specialist. Someone who works with military and police dogs. If anyone can decode what's been done to him, it's her. Dr. Sarah Chun arrived at 4:30 p.m. in a sedan that had seen better days, carrying a worn leather bag and an expression that suggested she'd seen worse than whatever we were about to show her. Martinez and I met her in the hallway outside the observation room. Tell me everything, Dr. Chun said, skipping introductions. We did. The alley, the overnight abandonment, the footage, the positioning, the stranger. Dr. Chun listened without interrupting, her eyes growing darker with each detail. When we finished, she simply nodded and approached the observation window. Chili stood in his corner, exactly as he had for hours. Dr. Chun watched him for a full minute before speaking. His breathing is controlled, she said quietly. See how his chest barely moves? That's not natural for a dog under stress. That's training. Trained for what? I asked. Concealment. Low-profile surveillance work. You teach a dog to minimize their presence. No panting, no movement, no sound. When they need to remain undetected. She pointed at his posture. And look at his weight distribution. He's ready to move in any direction instantly, but he's conserving energy. That's advanced conditioning. Military? Martinez asked. Maybe. Or private security. Sometimes protection details for high-risk individuals. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. Sometimes less legal applications. The words hung heavy in the air. Can I go in? She asked. Martinez glanced at me, then nodded. Slow approach. He's been cooperative but unresponsive. Dr. Chun entered the kennel with a confidence I envied. No hesitation, no fear, just calm, professional assessment. Chili's eyes tracked her immediately, but he didn't change position. Hello, friend, Dr. Chun said, her voice neutral. Not warm, not cold. Matter of fact. At ease. Nothing happened for 3 seconds. Then Chili's shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch. My breath caught. It was the first time I'd seen him relax since the alley. He knows commands, Dr. Chun said, speaking to us through the door she'd left slightly ajar. Military style. Let me try something. She turned back to Chili. Post. Instantly, Chili's posture sharpened. He moved 2 steps to his right and sat, facing the door at a precise 45-degree angle. Dear God, Dr. Reeves whispered behind me. Dr. Chun tried another. Watch. Chili's focus shifted to the hallway beyond the door. His entire body coiled with attention. Stand down. His muscles released incrementally, though his eyes never stopped tracking the corridor. Dr. Chun backed out of the kennel slowly, her face carefully neutral. But when the door closed behind her, I saw her hands were shaking. What is it? I asked. That dog has been trained to a level I've only seen in elite protection units. We're talking thousands of hours of conditioning. Muscle memory is so deep it's overridden his survival instincts. She looked at Martinez. Whoever owned him before didn't have a pet. They had a weapon. Can we undo it? The question came out smaller than I intended. Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. Maybe. With time, patience, and the right environment. But here's what you need to understand. She gestured toward the kennel where Chili had resumed his watch. He's not standing guard because he's afraid or confused. He's standing guard because somewhere in his mind, he's still on assignment. Assignment to do what? Martinez asked. Protect something. Dr. Chun pulled out her phone, scrolling through notes. Dogs trained this intensely usually have a specific function: personal protection, property defense, threat neutralization. She paused. Or asset guarding. Asset guarding? Drugs, money, weapons. Anything someone needs is protected and can't trust humans to watch. Her voice dropped. They left him in that alley with a command. And until someone gives him a release command or he physically can't continue, he'll keep following it. I looked through the observation window at Chili, still standing, still watching, still waiting for orders that would never come. What was he protecting? I asked. There was nothing in that alley. Dr. Chun met my eyes, and in her expression I saw something that made my blood run cold. Maybe that's exactly what they wanted him to guard, she said. Nothing. Empty space. A test to see how long his conditioning would hold. Or worse, I thought but didn't say. They stationed him there because something was supposed to be there, and we'd just taken away their guard dog. Listen, if you're feeling what I'm feeling right now, if Chili's story is getting under your skin the way it got under mine, do me a favor. Smash that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. My fiancé said nobody cares about just a dog story. But you're here. You're still listening. That means something. Let's get to 1K subscribers this week and prove that good stories still matter. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Martinez's phone rang at 6:47 p.m., just as the autumn darkness settled over the shelter. I watched her face change as she listened, the professional mask slipping to reveal something raw underneath. Say that again, she said into the phone. Then, how many cameras? She hung up and turned to Dr. Chun and me. The corner store owner found more footage. A lot more. Different angles, longer timeline. Her voice was carefully controlled. We need to see this. Now. The corner store was a narrow building wedged between a check-cashing place and a shuttered barbershop. Inside, it smelled like old coffee and resignation. The owner, a man named Kumar who looked like he hadn't slept in days, had set up a laptop on the counter, 3 different video files queued and ready. I have 4 cameras, he explained, his accent thick with exhaustion and something else. Guilt, maybe. Front entrance, register, back storage, and 1 pointed at the alley. For the rats, you understand. Not 4. He gestured helplessly at the screen. Not for this. Can we see the full timeline? Dr. Chen asked. Kumar nodded and pressed play on the first file. Timestamp. 9:41 p.m. The alley was empty. Dark except for the weak glow of a streetlight half a block away. Nothing moved. Nothing happened. Then, at 9:46, headlights appeared. The pickup truck rolled into frame slowly. Not speeding, not fleeing. Just arriving. Like someone pulling up to deliver furniture or pick up trash. Completely ordinary. 2 figures stepped out. The taller one moved around to the truck bed while the second opened the passenger door. Can you zoom in? Martinez asked. Kumar adjusted the settings, though the resolution only got grainier. We could make out general shapes, the larger figure male, broad-shouldered. The smaller one is harder to determine. Both wore dark clothing, baseball caps pulled low. They lifted the crate from the truck bed together. Not struggling with the weight. Moving with the practiced coordination of people who'd done this before. They carried it to the brick wall and set it down carefully. Precisely. The exact spot where I'd found it 9 hours later. They're positioning it, Dr. Chun said quietly. Look at how they adjust the angle. She was right. The smaller figure knelt and shifted the crate maybe 6 inches to the left. The larger one stepped back, assessing, then nodded. Then the larger figure walked back to the truck and returned leading Chili on a leash. My throat closed up because Chili wasn't being dragged. I wasn't resisting. He walked beside the figure with perfect heel position, head level, completely calm. Like this was routine. like this was just another day. Jesus, Martinez breathed. They stopped at the crate. The larger figure opened the door, that same methodical movement, no rush, no urgency, and gestured inside. Chili climbed in without hesitation. The door closed, the latch clicked, and then the larger figure did something that made my hands ball into fists. He crouched down, got eye level with Chili through the wire. And for 43 seconds, I counted them later after I'd watched this footage a dozen times, he spoke to the dog. We couldn't hear the words. The camera had no audio, but we could see Chili's response. His body is straightening, his focus sharpened, his entire being zeroing in on whatever instruction he was receiving. Then the figure stood and pointed, toward the street, toward the gap between the dumpster and the fence. The exact direction Chili had been facing when I found him. The figure held that position, arm extended, finger pointed for 5 full seconds, making sure the command was understood, making sure Chili knew exactly what was expected of him. Then both figures returned to the truck. The headlights swept across the alley one final time, catching Chili's eyes in the reflection. 2 bright points of light in the darkness. The truck drove away, and Chili stayed. Kumar stopped the video. Nobody spoke for a long moment. "Show us the rest," Dr. Chun finally said, her voice rough. Kumar pulled up the second file. Same camera angle, different timestamp. 10:15 p.m. Chili sat in the crate, facing the street, motionless. Kumar fast-forwarded. 11 p.m. same position. Midnight. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. "Stop," Martinez said. "Go back to normal speed." 2:17 a.m. We'd already seen this part. The unsteady man approaching, rattling the latch, Chili rising to defend the crate. But Kumar had more footage from different angles. From the front entrance camera, we could see the man's face when he backed away. Pure fear. Not from aggression or barking. From the absolute certainty in that dog's eyes. The man practically ran back to the street. Chili resumed his position. "What time did you find him?" Dr. Chun asked me. 6:12 a.m. Kumar scrolled through the footage. 3 a.m. Chili was still sitting upright. To 4 o'clock, the same. At 5 o'clock, his body had started to sway slightly. Exhaustion setting in, but he never lay down, never stopped watching. At 5:47 a.m., a police car cruised past the alley entrance. The officer never even looked. At 6:09, I appeared on screen. I watched myself approach the crate. I watched myself pull out my phone. Watching Chili's eyes track my every movement with that unsettling precision. Kumar paused the video. 8 hours, he said quietly. 8 hours he sat there, in the cold, alone. And he never tried to escape. They trained him to do this, I said, and was surprised by the rage in my own voice. They spent months, maybe years, conditioning him, breaking down his natural instincts, rebuilding him into a tool, Dr. Chin finished. That's what he was to them. Not a companion, not family, a tool with a specific function. Martinez had gone very still. The way they dropped him off, it wasn't abandonment. No, Dr. Chan agreed. It was a deployment. The word hung in the air like smoke. They gave him a mission, Martinez continued, working through it. Guard this location. Watch this approach. And he did. Even when it hurt him. Even when it could have killed him. I thought about the frost on his coat. The empty water bowl. The way his legs had trembled from standing too long. The stranger he'd frightened away in the middle of the night. He's not a victim, I said slowly, understanding finally crystallizing. I mean, he is, but that's not how he sees it. In his mind, he's still on duty, Dr. Chin finished. And that's the cruelest part. They didn't just abandon him. They left him with purpose, with orders, with a job he'd been conditioned to complete no matter the cost. She pulled out her phone and started typing rapidly. "What are you doing?" Martinez asked. "Running this through some contacts. People who work in private security, executive protection, that world." She looked up. "Because dogs trained to this level don't come cheap. We're talking 5 figures minimum, maybe 6. That's not backyard breeding or amateur hour." "So what does that mean?" "It means whoever left him in that alley wasn't some random owner who couldn't keep a pet." Dr. Chen's expression had gone dark. "It means someone with resources, with connections, with enough money to invest in specialized training. Someone like that decided this dog had outlived his usefulness. Or worse, I thought. What else happened that night?" I asked. "What was he really protecting?" Martinez pulled out her own phone. "I'm calling the detective unit. If this is connected to organized crime or—" "Wait," Kumar interrupted. He'd been staring at his laptop screen, scrolling through something. "There's one more thing." He pulled up a third video file. "This is from my front entrance camera. Different angles. Wider view." He fast-forwarded to 9:48 p.m. The pickup truck was visible, but so was something else. A second vehicle, parked half a block down. Dark sedan. Lights off. It sat there for 3 minutes after the pickup truck left. Then it drove away slowly, deliberately, in the opposite direction. "They were watching," Dr. Chan said quietly, "making sure the deployment went smoothly. Or making sure Chili actually stayed," Martinez added. I stared at the empty alley on screen, at the crate sitting against the brick wall, at Chili, alone, following orders that would never be countermanded. What was supposed to be there? I whispered. What was he really guarding? Nobody answered, because none of us knew. But somewhere out there, someone did. And they'd known Chili would guard it faithfully, even unto death. Survival wasn't the hardest part. Obedience was. I didn't understand that until Kumar pulled up the final footage file. The one none of us had seen yet. The one that made everything before it feel like a prologue. "This is from 3:33 a.m., Kumar said, his finger hovering over the play button. I almost missed it. The timestamp glitched. Filed it under corrupted data. But when I recovered it..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "You need to see what your dog did. Your dog." The words settled over me like a weight I hadn't asked for but somehow already carried. Kumar pressed play. The alley appeared on screen, washed in the sickly gray of infrared night vision. Chili sat in the crate, his outline sharp against the darker background. For hours into his watch. For hours of cold seeping into his bones, of muscles screaming for rest, of every instinct begging him to break free. He hadn't moved. The timestamp flickered. 3:33 and 47 seconds a.m. For 20 seconds, nothing happened. Just a dog in a crate. Just an empty alley. Just the quiet hours when the world pretends nothing bad can happen. Then a shadow separated from the darkness on the left side of the frame. "Here," Kumar whispered. A man emerged into the camera's range. Different from the earlier drunk, this one moved with purpose. Sober. Deliberate. He wore a dark hoodie pulled up, hands shoved in pockets, scanning the alley like someone who knew exactly what he was looking for, or what he'd been sent to find. My pulse hammered in my throat. The man spotted the crate and stopped. 10 feet away. Close enough to see clearly. Far enough to assess risk. Inside the crate, Chili's head turned with mechanical precision. No barking. No whining. No sound at all. Just those eyes, locking onto the stranger with absolute focus. "Watch his body language," Dr. Chan said quietly, leaning closer to the screen. Chili rose. Not scrambling, not panicked. Every movement is controlled, measured, and efficient. He positioned himself dead center in the crate, squared his shoulders, and went perfectly still. The man took a step forward. Chili's weight shifted, so subtle I almost missed it. A microscopic redistribution that said, I see you. I'm ready. Try me. 3 seconds passed. 5, 10. The man reached into his pocket. My stomach dropped. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out his phone, angled it toward the crate, and the screen's glow illuminated his face for just a moment. Young. Latino. A thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He was taking a picture. Why? Martinez started. Proof of life, Dr. Chun interrupted. Or proof of position. He's documenting that the dog is where he's supposed to be. The man lowered his phone and took another step closer. Now he was maybe 6 feet from the crate. Close enough that Chili could have lunged at the wire, could have thrown himself against the door, could have done anything to signal I'm trapped. Help me, please. Chili did none of those things. Instead, he held position and did something that made the hair on my arms stand up. He increased his threat display without making a single sound. His ears came forward a fraction of an inch. His weight settled deeper into his haunches. The muscles along his shoulders bunched, visible even through the grainy footage. And his eyes, those dark, intelligent eyes, never blinked. It wasn't aggression. It was a promise. You can open this door, but you won't like what happens next. The man on screen seemed to receive the message. He backed up 1 step, then another. He circled the crate slowly, maintaining distance, his phone still out and recording. Chili rotated in place, keeping his body aligned toward the threat, tracking every movement with mechanical precision. He's not protecting himself, I breathed. He's protecting the crate. He's protecting his post, Dr. Chun corrected. His assignment. Whatever he was told to guard, he's guarding it. Even though there's nothing there. The man completed his circle and stood at the original approach angle. He stared at Chili for 15 long seconds. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing back into the darkness from which he'd come. The timestamp read 3:36 and 12 seconds a.m., 2.5 minutes. That's all it had taken. On screen, Chili watched the man leave. Watched the shadows where he'd vanished. Watched for another full minute, making sure the threat was truly gone. Then, and only then, he sat back down, faced the street, resumed his vigil as if nothing had happened. Kumar stopped the video. The office felt airless. Too small. I couldn't get enough oxygen. He could have called for help, Martinez said, her voice rough. That man had a phone. Chili could have barked, could have drawn attention, could have. He did exactly what he was trained to do, Dr. Chun said. Neutralize the threat without compromise, without deviation, without mercy. She turned to me. Do you understand what we're looking at? This isn't a dog protecting himself. This is a dog executing a tactical response. But why? The question ripped out of me. Why stay? Why follow orders from people who left him to freeze? Because in his mind, Dr. Chun gestured at the frozen image of Chili on screen. They didn't leave him. They deployed him. There's a difference. The words landed like a physical blow. He thinks he's still working, I said slowly. He doesn't think. He knows. Dr. Chen's expression had gone dark. They gave him a mission. Guard this post. Defend this position. And until someone with authority over him countermands that order, he'll keep following it. Even if it kills him. Martinez had pulled out her phone and was already dialing. I'm escalating this to major crimes. That second man, the one in the footage, wasn't random. He was checking on an asset. Checking to make sure their guard dog was still operational, Dr. Chen added. Still following protocol. Still useful. I looked at the screen, at Chili's outline frozen in the infrared glow. At the empty crate and the empty alley and the absolute emptiness of what had been done to him. They didn't abandon him, I said, finally understanding the full horror of it. They used him. right up until the last second. And even then, even when they drove away, they knew he'd stay. Knew he couldn't do anything else. Conditioning this deep doesn't break, Dr. Chan said quietly. It has to be unmade, piece by piece, command by command. And even then, she stopped, shook her head. Some dogs never fully recover. The loyalty has been weaponized too thoroughly. I thought about Chili in his kennel at the shelter. Still standing, still watching, still waiting for orders that would never come. Still on duty, still assigned, still believing that someone, somewhere, was depending on him to hold his post. How do we tell him he's free? I whispered. Dr. Chen's eyes were bright with something that might have been tears or might have been rage. We can't. Not with words. Dogs don't understand freedom as a concept. She paused. But maybe we can teach him something else. What? That rest isn't disobedience. That safety doesn't require vigilance. That he's allowed to just be. The weight in my chest shifted, settled deeper. Became something I recognized as responsibility. Your dog, Kumar had said. Maybe he was right. Maybe that's what happened when you found someone the world had broken and decided they deserved better than the pieces they'd been left in. Outside, the sun had fully set. The shelter would be locked down for the night. And somewhere in a kennel with fluorescent lights and cinder block walls, Chili would be standing watch. Still faithful. Still loyal. Still guarding against threats that existed only in the commands burned into his bones. I stood up. I need to go back. To the shelter. Tonight? Martinez asked. He's been on duty for over 20 hours. I met her eyes. Someone needs to tell him it's okay to stand down. Even if he couldn't understand me yet. Even if it took months or years. Someone had to start trying. Because survival wasn't the hardest part. Obedience was. And Chili had been obedient long enough. He doesn't know how to stop being useful. That's what Dr. Chan told me on day 7. When Chili had finally started eating again but still wouldn't lie down. When his body had begun to heal but his mind remained locked in a position no veterinarian could x-ray. No medication could reach. Physically, he's recovering well, Dr. Reeves said, scrolling through charts on her tablet. We stood in the observation room watching Chili through the window. He'd been moved to a larger kennel. More space, softer lighting. An actual bed in the corner that he'd never once touched. Weights stabilizing. Hydration levels are normal. The muscle tremors have stopped. But, I prompted because there was always a but. But he's not resting. Not really. She pulled up a sleep monitoring graph. The line was jagged, fractured, showing intervals of maybe 20 minutes at a time. Dogs need 12 to 14 hours of sleep per day. He's getting 4, maybe 5 if we're lucky. Why? Dr. Chun answered from behind me. Because sleep is vulnerable. And vulnerable dogs can't complete their missions. She'd been coming to the shelter every day since we'd discovered the footage. Observing, documenting, trying to decode the specific brand of conditioning that had been burned into Chili's nervous system. Come look at this, she said, gesturing to her own laptop. The screen showed video from inside Chili's kennel, time-stamped from the previous night, 2:47 a.m. In the footage, Chili's eyes had finally closed. His body had started to relax into something approaching rest. Then a dog 3 kennels down had barked. On screen, I watched Chili snap to full alertness in under a second. Ears forward. Eyes scanning. Body coiled and ready. He didn't just wake up. He activated like someone had flipped a switch from standby to operational. The other dog went quiet. Chili remained standing for the next 43 minutes. That's the problem, Dr. Chan said quietly. His nervous system has been rewired. Normal stimulus that should register as background noise triggers a tactical response. His brain can't differentiate between a threat and, she gestured vaguely, life. Can we fix it? I asked, though I already knew the answer would hurt. Fix implies something broken. Chili isn't broken. Dr. Chun closed the laptop. He's functioning exactly as designed. That's what makes this so insidious. The people who trained him didn't damage his mind, they optimized it. For their purposes. She pulled up a chair, and I sat across from her, suddenly exhausted. Let me explain what we're actually dealing with, she continued. Normal dog training works with a dog's natural instincts. Pack bonding, desire to please, food motivation. It's collaborative. And this is architectural. They didn't train Chili, they rebuilt him. Took his loyalty, his intelligence, his desire to please, and weaponized every single impulse. Her voice had gone cold with clinical precision. Dogs want to make their handlers happy. That's hardwired. So they taught him that the only way to earn approval was perfect obedience. No deviation, no hesitation, no choice. The last word landed like a stone in dark water. Loyalty without choice, I said slowly, isn't loyalty. No, it's programming. Dr. Chun stood and walked to the observation window. And the cruelest part? It works. Watch. She opened the door to the hallway and called out, Chili, come. Through the window, I saw his immediate response. Body orienting toward the sound. Muscles engaging. 3 precise steps toward the kennel door before Dr. Chun held up her hand. Easy. As you were. Chili stopped mid-stride and returned to his original position. Exact same spot. Exact same angle. Like rewinding a video. Perfect execution, Dr. Chun said, and there was something like grief in her voice. He's the most obedient dog I've ever assessed, which means he's also the most damaged. I stared at her. How can obedience be damaged? Because he has no choice in it. A healthy dog obeys because they want to, because they trust you, because the command makes sense to them. She gestured toward Chili. He obeys because not obeying is neurologically impossible. They've eliminated his ability to assess, to question, to decide. They took away his agency, I whispered. They took away his self. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and irretrievable. On day 9, I tried something Dr. Chun had suggested. I entered Chili's kennel with no commands, no structure, no expectations. Just sat on the floor against the far wall and waited, being present without asking for anything. Chili watched me from his position near the door. 5 feet of distance that might as well have been miles. You don't have to do anything, I said softly. You can just exist. That's enough. His ears flicked toward my voice, processing, but his body remained locked in place. I tried again. There's no assignment today, no post to guard, no one to protect. You're allowed to rest. Nothing. 20 minutes passed. My legs fell asleep. My back ached against the cinder block. But I didn't move, didn't command, didn't ask. Finally, so gradually I almost missed it, Chili's weight shifted. One paw moved forward. Then another. Slow, cautious, like approaching a trap he couldn't quite identify. He stopped 3 feet away. His eyes met mine, and in them I saw something that broke me. Confusion. Not fear. Not aggression. Just the profound bewilderment of a creature who'd been given a problem with no solution. You're not giving me orders. But you're here. What am I supposed to do? It's okay, I whispered. You don't have to do anything. His head tilted slightly. The first gesture I'd seen from him that looked like a normal dog response. Curious. Uncertain. Then he took one more step. And stopped. Because someone in his past had taught him that initiative was dangerous. That acting without explicit permission led to correction. That the only safe choice was no choice at all. I felt something crack open in my chest. Chili, I said, my voice breaking. You're a good dog. You've always been a good dog. Even when they made you. I stopped, swallowed hard. You can stop now. You can stop being perfect. His tail moved. Just once. A tiny, aborted wag that he shut down immediately, like he'd been caught doing something forbidden. And I understood then what Dr. Chun had been trying to tell me. He didn't know how to stop being useful. Because useful dogs got kept. Useful dogs had purpose. Useful dogs didn't end up in crates in frozen alleys, following orders into the void. The only safety he'd ever known came from perfect compliance. And we were asking him to give up the only thing that had ever protected him. That night, I stayed late at the shelter, watching Chili through the observation window. Dr. Reeves had gone home. The other staff had locked up. It was just me and the quiet sounds of dogs settling in for the night. Chili stood in his corner, maintaining his watch. I pulled out my phone and called Dr. Chun. "Tell me the truth," I said when she answered. "Can he recover from this?" She was quiet for a long moment. Define recovery. Can he ever just be a dog? Play? Relax? Stop waiting for commands that aren't coming? Maybe. The word was careful. With time. With patience. With an environment so safe and so consistent that his nervous system can finally start to believe the mission is over. How long? Months. Maybe years. Maybe never completely. She paused. Herlinda, what they did to him, it's not like teaching a dog bad habits you can untrain. They fundamentally altered his neural pathways. Fear conditioning that deep leaves permanent changes. He'll always be more vigilant than a normal dog. Always more reactive. Always more obedient. I finished. Yes, and that's the tragedy. He's going to be the best behaved dog most people have ever met. He'll never jump on guests, never pull on the leash, never disobey a command. And every single one of those good behaviors is evidence of trauma. Through the window, Chili shifted his weight, and I saw the slight tremor in his back legs. Still exhausted, still standing, still useful. What happens if we can't find him a home? I asked. What happens if no one wants a dog this damaged? Dr. Chen's answer was quiet. Then he stays on duty, forever, because in his mind, being useful is the only thing keeping him alive. I hung up and pressed my forehead against the cold glass. Inside the kennel, Chili stood watch over nothing, guarding emptiness, following orders that had been designed to have no end. And the most heartbreaking part wasn't that he was broken. It was that he wasn't. He was functioning exactly as intended. Perfect soldier with no war to fight. Perfect tool with no job to complete. A perfect dog who'd forgotten or never learned how to simply be. Waiting resumes. That's what I wrote in my journal on day 14, after the Hendersons left. After Hope had walked through the door with a family of 4 and walked back out 40 minutes later with apologies and gentle regret. After Chili had been almost chosen. Almost free. Almost. They arrived at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, when the shelter was busy with weekend foot traffic and the sound of barking echoed off every surface. Marcus and Jennifer Henderson, mid-30s, with 2 kids, Emma, age 9, and Christopher, age 6. The kind of family you'd see in a dog food commercial, all warmth and stability and room to run. Dr. Reeves had screened them carefully. No first-time dog owners. They'd had a German Shepherd for 12 years before he passed from cancer. They understood commitment. They understood that some dogs needed extra patience. They wanted to meet Chili. "We read his story," Jennifer said, standing in the consultation room while Martinez pulled up his file. The news article about how he was found, what he endured. She glanced at her children, then back to us. "We've worked with a rescue before. We know it takes time. Chili's case is complicated." Dr. Reeves began carefully. "He's made progress. He's eating. He's responding to basic engagement. But he has triggers we're still mapping. Loud noises, sudden movements, Any situation that mimics tactical scenarios, Marcus finished. He had the steady bearing of someone who measured his words. We read Dr. Chen's assessment. We're not expecting a normal dog. We're expecting a dog who needs us to be better than normal owners. I watched from the doorway, wanting to believe it could work, wanting to trust that this family's patience and understanding would be enough. I want Chili to have this chance. Let's go meet him, Dr. Reeves said. We'd moved Chili to a quieter section of the shelter for the meeting. A room with soft lighting, comfortable furniture. No kennels or wire crates in sight. We'd learned that metal enclosures triggered something in him. A return to that alley, that assignment, that endless night. He sat in the far corner when we entered, positioned at an angle that let him observe both the door and the room's single window. Still calculating, still assessing, still on duty. This is Chili, I said softly. Chili, these are the Hendersons. They'd like to get to know you. The family filed in slowly. The children had clearly been coached. No running, no squealing, no sudden approaches. They settled onto the couch while Marcus and Jennifer sat on the floor, giving Chili space and height advantage. Hey, buddy, Marcus said, his voice low and even. We heard you've had a rough time. No pressure here. We're just gonna sit and hang out. You decide what happens next. Chili's eyes tracked each person, categorizing them with that same methodical precision I'd come to recognize. Not aggressive, not fearful, just processing. 5 minutes passed in relative silence. The kids fidgeted but stayed quiet. Jennifer pulled out a book and began reading to Christopher in a gentle murmur. Normal sounds, family sounds. Chili's ears rotated toward her voice. Then slowly, deliberately, he stood. Emma inhaled sharply, and her mother touched her shoulder. Stay still. Chili approached Marcus first. 3 careful steps, then a pause. 3 more steps. Pause. Like crossing a minefield only he could see. He stopped 2 feet away. Marcus didn't reach out, didn't move, just smiled slightly and said, "You're doing great." Chili's nose twitched, processing sense. Family dog that had passed. Other animals in their home. The laundry detergent they used. 1,000 data points that meant safety or danger, friend or threat. His tail moved. Just once. A tiny flag of something that might have been hope. "Can I pet him?" Emma whispered. "Let him come to you," her father whispered back. And Chili did. He moved past Marcus and approached Emma with that same cautious deliberation. She'd frozen in place, her hand resting on her knee, palm up, an offering, not a demand. Chili lowered his head and pressed his nose into her palm. The gentleness of it made my throat close. This was the dog they'd trained to intimidate intruders, to guard posts through freezing nights, to respond to threats with controlled precision. And here he was, being so careful with a 9-year-old girl that he barely made contact. "Hi, Chili," Emma breathed. "You're so soft." His tail wagged twice. Actual, genuine wags. Jennifer's eyes were bright with tears. Marcus's expression had softened into something like wonder. Even Christopher had crept closer, fascinated by this big, scarred dog who moved like he was afraid of breaking something precious. "He's perfect," Jennifer whispered, and for 30 seconds I believed it too. Believed that maybe this family was exactly what he needed. That maybe love and patience and time could undo what had been done. That maybe the fire alarm went off. Not a fire, just a test. Scheduled maintenance that everyone had forgotten to mention. A piercing electronic shriek that ripped through the building like a physical thing. Chili's transformation was instant. He snapped away from Emma, body going rigid, ears flat against his skull. In one fluid motion, he positioned himself between the family and the door, the same stance I'd seen in the alley, in the kennel, in every moment when his conditioning overrode everything else. His lips pulled back. Not a snarl. A warning. silent and absolute. "Easy," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the alarm. "Easy, boy. We're okay." But Chili wasn't hearing him. His eyes had gone distant, fixed on the door, seeing something none of us could see. A threat, a breach, an enemy approaching the asset he'd been assigned to protect. The children had pressed back against their mother, not from fear of the dog, but from the sudden understanding that they were witnessing something broken in a way they couldn't fix. The alarm cut off after 15 seconds. The silence that followed felt louder. Chili held his position for another 30 seconds. Then a minute. His breathing was controlled, his body coiled, his focus absolute. "Chili," I said softly. "Stand down. It's safe." "Nothing." Dr. Reeves tried. At ease. His shoulders dropped fractionally, but he didn't move. I didn't relax. Didn't come back from whatever war his mind had transported him to. Marcus stood slowly, helping Jennifer and the kids to their feet. His movements were careful, respectful, heartbreakingly understanding. "It's okay," he said to me, not to Chili. "It's not his fault. We could try again," I said desperately. "On a quieter day." "When?" "We have a smoke detector at home," Jennifer interrupted gently. "A security system. Delivery trucks that backfire. A neighbor who sets off fireworks." She looked at Chili with something that wasn't fear or disappointment, just sadness. "He needs more than we can give him. More than most people can give him." "He was perfect," Emma said, her voice small. "Before the alarm. He was so gentle." "I know, sweetie." Jennifer guided her daughter toward the door. "But he's still fighting a war we can't see. And it's not fair to him or to us to pretend we have the training to help him." They filed out quietly. No anger, no blame. Just the soft sound of a door closing on a possibility that had been real for exactly 30 seconds. I turned back to Chili. He'd returned to his corner. Same position, same angle, same vigilant stillness. Like the last 40 minutes had never happened. Like hope was just another thing to guard against. Dr. Reeves found me in the observation room an hour later. I was still watching Chili, still trying to understand how something could be so close and yet impossibly far. "They were good people," I said. "They were," she agreed. "They wanted him. They did. So why—" My voice cracked. "Why isn't that enough?" Dr. Reeves sat beside me, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of years watching animals suffer from human choices. "Because good homes aren't always enough. Not for damage this deep. He doesn't need a family who can tolerate his triggers. He needs someone who can eliminate them entirely. Someone with the resources, the training, the environment to give him a world without sirens or fireworks or unexpected sounds. And that's impossible," I finished. "Rare," she corrected. "Very, very rare." Through the window, Chili shifted his weight. The movement was so small I almost missed it, just a redistribution of pressure from one paw to another. The kind of micro-adjustment someone makes when they've been standing too long but refuse to sit down. Still on duty, still guarding, still waiting for orders that would release him from a mission that had no end. "What happens if we can't find that rare home?" I asked. Dr. Reeves didn't answer right away. When she did, her words fell like stones. "Then he stays here, and we do our best. And we hope that eventually, someday, he learns that waiting isn't the same as living." I pressed my hand against the glass. In the kennel, Chili's eyes tracked a shadow moving past the window, assessed it, dismissed it, returned to scanning. The waiting resumed, and I understood, finally, what Dr. Chun had been trying to tell me from the beginning. Chili wasn't waiting to be rescued. He was waiting for his next assignment. Because good soldiers don't retire. They just keep standing watch until someone with authority tells them the war is over. And no one had told Chili. No one could. "Real quick, we're halfway to proving my fiancé spectacularly wrong." If you haven't subscribed yet, now's your moment. He thinks storytelling channels can't grow fast. He thinks people only want 60-second dopamine hits. But you're still here after 45 minutes, which tells me everything. Hit subscribe, leave a like, comment your country or city, and share this with one person. Just one. Let's show him that patience still exists. For dogs like Chili, and for stories that take their time. Okay. Back to Vincent. Not rescue, permission. That's what made the difference in the end. Not the families who wanted to save him. Not the trainers who promised to fix him. But the man who showed up on day 23 and simply asked if he could sit with the dog nobody else could reach. His name was Vincent Carrero, and he was 72 years old. He arrived without an appointment, without fanfare, without any of the hopeful energy that usually accompanied potential adopters. Just walked through the shelter doors at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, stood at the front desk with patient stillness, and waited for someone to notice him. I noticed the quietness first, the way he occupied space without demanding it. "Can I help you?" I asked. "I'd like to meet the dog from the news," he said. His voice was soft, accented Puerto Rican, maybe, or Dominican. "The one they left in the alley, if that's allowed." I'd heard this request 24 times since the story broke. Well-meaning people who wanted to be the hero, who wanted the heartwarming ending, who wanted to feel good about themselves. But something in Vincent's face stopped my usual screening speech. He wasn't smiling, wasn't selling anything, just stood there with the patient bearing of someone who'd learned to wait without expectation. "Have you worked with traumatized dogs before?" I asked. "No." He didn't elaborate, didn't try to convince me he was qualified. Chili has specific needs, triggers. He's not a typical adoption case. "I know. We've had several families interested, people with experience. They didn't work out." "I know that too." Vincent shifted his weight slightly. "I'm not here to fix him. I'm just here to sit with him. If he'll allow it." The phrasing caught me. If he'll allow it. Not, "I'd like to take him home," or, "I think I can help," or any of the other ways people announce their intentions to rescue. Just a simple request for permission to be present. "Let me talk to Dr. Reeves," I said. "Absolutely not," Dr. Reeves said when I found her in her office. "We've had 3 failed meet and greets. We need professionals, behaviorists, people who understand tactical conditioning." "He doesn't want to adopt," I said. "He just wants to sit with him." "Why?" I didn't have an answer, just a feeling that lodged somewhere behind my sternum, an intuition I couldn't name. "Let me be there," I said. "The whole time. If anything feels wrong, I'll end it." Dr. Reeves studied my face for a long moment, then sighed. 1 hour. Supervised. "And if Chili shows any signs of stress, I'll pull him out immediately." We took Vincent to the quiet room where the Hendersons had met Chili. The same soft lighting, the same comfortable furniture, the same heavy silence of a space that had witnessed too many almosts. Chili sat in his corner, angled toward the door. His eyes found Vincent immediately and tracked him with that familiar, unsettling precision. "This is Chili," I said. "Chili, this is Vincent. He'd like to spend some time with you. Is that okay?" The question was for both of them. Vincent moved to the far side of the room, not the couch, not the floor near Chili. He chose a chair against the wall, maybe 10 feet of distance between them, and sat down slowly. His joints protested audibly, knees that had carried too many years. Then he did something I didn't expect. Nothing. He sat, didn't speak, didn't look directly at Chili, just settled into the chair with the ease of someone comfortable with silence. 5 minutes passed. Chili's ears swiveled, tracking small sounds. Vincent's breathing, the rustle of his jacket, the creak of the chair. 10 minutes. Vincent pulled a worn paperback from his pocket, The Old Man and the Sea, and opened it to a dog-eared page. I started reading, silently to himself. His lips moved slightly with the words, 15 minutes. I was about to suggest we call it when Chili stood. Vincent's eyes didn't leave his book. Chili took 2 steps forward. Paused. 2 more steps. The same careful approach I'd seen with the Hendersons, with Dr. Chun, with everyone who tried to reach him. But this time something was different. His posture was looser, less calculated, like he was moving because he wanted to, not because protocol demanded it. He stopped 5 feet from Vincent's chair. Vincent turned a page. "I had a dog once," Vincent said quietly, still not looking up. "His name was Mateo. He was with me for 16 years. He paused, and I saw his throat work. He died 3 years ago. Heart failure. The vet said it was peaceful, but I don't know. I wasn't there when it happened." Chili's head tilted slightly. "I told myself I wouldn't get another dog," Vincent continued. "Seemed unfair. To compare. To expect Mateo's loyalty from someone else." He finally looked up, not at Chili directly, but at the space beside him. "But then I saw your picture in the newspaper, and I thought," his voice caught, "I thought maybe you understand what it's like to keep serving even when the person you're serving is gone." The words settled into the room like dust. Chili took another step forward. "I'm not here to replace anything," Vincent said. "Not your training, not your purpose, not whatever they made you into." He closed his book carefully. "I'm just here to tell you that sometimes it's okay to stop, to rest, to be tired. Another step. And if you need someone to sit with while you figure that out." Vincent's eyes, roomy with age and grief, finally met Chili's. "I've got time." Chili closed the remaining distance and sat. Not at attention, not in a tactical position, just sat. Close enough that Vincent could reach out if he wanted to. Vincent didn't. They stayed like that for 20 minutes. An old man with a book and a broken dog, sharing space without demands. When Chili finally moved, it was to position himself between Vincent and the door. My heart sank. The same behavior, the same guarding instinct, the same. "Thank you," Vincent said softly. I blinked. "For what?" "For protecting me." He looked at Chili with something that might have been understanding. "You don't know me yet, don't trust me yet, but you're still making sure nothing gets past you to hurt me. That's—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "That's loyalty I haven't earned. But I'll try to." And just like that, I understood. Chili wasn't broken because he guarded. He was broken because no one had ever thanked him for it. The adoption paperwork took 3 days to process. Home visit, references, detailed discussions about Chili's needs, his triggers, his limitations. Vincent listened to everything with the same patient quiet he'd brought to that first meeting. "I don't have much," he said when Dr. Reeves outlined the challenges. "Pension, small house, quiet neighborhood. No fireworks because my neighbor is 90 and has a heart condition." He paused. "But I have time, and I have silence. And I understand that sometimes those are the most expensive things you can offer." On day 26, Vincent came to take Chili home. No fanfare, no celebration, just a leash, a carrier bag with supplies, and a calm voice saying, "Ready to go, friend?" Chili walked beside him to the car with perfect heel position. But when Vincent opened the back door and gestured to the seat, he added something I'd never heard anyone say before. "You can sit wherever feels safest. No wrong choice." Chili hesitated. I looked at the back seat. I looked at the front. I looked at Vincent, then jumped in the back and positioned himself facing the rear window. Still on guard. Still watching. But this time, someone had given him permission to choose where to stand watch. I handed Vincent the folder of medical records and behavioral notes. Our hands touched briefly, and his were warm despite the autumn chill. Call us if you need anything, I said. Anytime, day or night. I will. He glanced at Chili in the rearview mirror. But I think mostly we'll just sit together. See what happens when nobody's asking him to be anything but present. They drove away slowly, carefully. Vincent's turn signal is on well before each intersection. I stood in the parking lot long after the car disappeared. Dr. Reeves beside me. Think it'll work? She asked. I don't know. I watched the empty street where they'd vanished. But it's the first time I've seen someone offer Chili something other than rescue. What did he offer? I thought about Vincent's quiet presence, his lack of expectation, the way he'd thank Chili for guarding instead of trying to stop it. Permission, I said finally, to still be what he is, but to choose when and how. Not rescue, not rehabilitation, just recognition. Sometimes the most broken things don't need fixing. They need someone willing to sit with them during the break. What shocked everyone wasn't what he did. It was what he finally didn't have to do anymore. 6 months. That's how long it took before Vincent called and asked if I'd like to visit. No pressure, he said over the phone, his voice carrying that same patient quietness I remembered. Just thought you might like to see him, if you have time. I had time. I'd thought about them constantly during those months. Wondered how Chili was adjusting, whether the triggers had lessened, whether Vincent's patience had been enough. Dr. Chun had done 2 follow-up visits and reported encouraging progress. But she'd been characteristically careful with her optimism. He's not the same dog, she'd said, but he's also not free yet. Still working on it. So when I pulled up to Vincent's house on a Saturday morning in late spring, I didn't know what to expect. The house was small, single-story, paint-chipped but tidy, with a chain-link fence surrounding a modest backyard. Wind chimes hung from the porch, the soft, wooden kind that whispered instead of clanged. Vincent met me at the door, moving slower than I remembered, a cane in his right hand. Herlinda, he said and smiled. Come in. He's out back. The backyard was larger than it looked from the street, maybe 40 feet deep, with grass that needed mowing and a wooden bench under an old magnolia tree. No crates, no kennels, no tactical positions. And there, in the center of the yard, lying in a patch of sunlight, was Chili. I stopped breathing. He was on his side, fully relaxed, legs stretched out, his head resting on the grass, eyes half closed against the warmth. The pink collar was gone, replaced by a simple blue one with a tag that caught the light. He's sleeping, I whispered. Sometimes for 2 hours at a time now, Vincent said quietly. Took 4 months before he'd lie down voluntarily. Another month before he'd do it in daylight. We stood on the porch watching. I was afraid to move, afraid to break whatever spell had allowed this moment to exist. Chili's ear flicked. A fly, probably. Normal dog irritation. He shifted slightly, getting more comfortable, and let out a long breath. Not scanning, not assessing, not guarding, just existing in the sun like he'd finally remembered that was allowed. How did you... I started. I didn't do anything, Vincent interrupted gently. I just stopped asking him to be anything other than tired. It took a while before he believed me. A bird landed on the fence. Chili's eyes opened, tracked it briefly, then closed again. No threat assessment, no tactical response, just mild interest, dismissed. Come on, Vincent said. He knows you're here. I heard your car 3 minutes ago. He's choosing to stay relaxed. The word choosing landed differently than it would have 6 months ago. I walked into the yard slowly, my shoes pressing into the overgrown grass. Chili's ear swiveled toward the sound, but he didn't lift his head. Hey, buddy, I said softly. Remember me? His tail thumped once against the ground. Lazy. Content. I sat on the bench, giving him space, and Vincent lowered himself beside me with a small grunt of effort. "The first month was hard," he said without preamble. "He wouldn't eat unless I gave explicit permission. I wouldn't drink. I wouldn't move through doorways until I went first." He paused. "But I learned something. Every time I gave him a command, even gentle ones, it set him back. Because commands meant work. And work meant he couldn't rest. So what did you do?" "Stopped commanding. Started offering." Vincent gestured toward Chili. "Instead of 'come here,' I'd say, 'I'm sitting on the couch if you want company.' Instead of 'lie down,' I'd say, 'I'm tired, think I'll rest.' And eventually," his voice caught slightly, "eventually he started making his own choices." A breeze moved through the magnolia tree, scattering shadows across the yard. Chili's eyes opened fully now, tracking me with that familiar intelligence. But something was different. The intensity was gone. The calculation. The constant assessment. He looked at me and seemed to decide. Familiar. Safe. Not urgent. Then he stood, stretched. A full, luxurious stretch that curved his spine and extended every muscle, and walked over. Not a tactical approach. Not cautious positioning. Just walking. Like a normal dog visiting a guest. He pressed his nose into my hand. My vision blurred. "Hello, Chili," I managed. "You look good." His tail wagged. 3 times. Actual, real wags that came from somewhere other than training. I scratched behind his ears, and he leaned into it. Accepting comfort. Seeking touch. Being a dog who enjoyed being petted instead of a soldier tolerating inspection. "Can I show you something?" Vincent asked. He led me to the back fence where a gate opened onto a small alley, not unlike the one where I'd found Chili. Similar brick walls. Similar layout. My stomach tightened. "Why would you?" "Watch," Vincent said quietly. He opened the gate. The alley beyond was empty. Quiet. Nothing threatening. Chili looked at the opening. I looked at Vincent. I looked back at the alley. Every muscle in my body tensed, waiting for the transformation. The snap to attention. The guarding posture. The return to that frozen night 6 months ago. But Chili did something that made tears spill down my cheeks. He walked past the gate without stopping. Back to his sunny patch of grass. Lay back down. He checked it, Vincent said softly. Made sure there was no threat. Then chose to rest instead of mounting the guard. He could have. Yes, 6 months ago, he would have positioned himself in that gateway and stayed there until I physically moved him. Maybe longer. Vincent closed the gate gently. But now he understands that checking is enough. That vigilance doesn't require suffering. We returned to the bench. Chili remained in his sunny spot, eyes closed again, breathing deep and even. A package delivery came last week, Vincent continued. Big truck, loud, pulled right up to the fence. Chili stood up, checked it out, and waited until the driver left. He paused, then came to me and put his head in my lap. First time he'd ever sought comfort instead of just providing protection. What did you do? Told him he was a good dog, that he'd done enough, that he could rest now. Vincent's voice went rough. And he believed me. Finally. I stayed for 2 hours. Watched Chili move through his yard with an ease that seemed impossible given where he'd started. He investigated a butterfly. Drank from his water bowl without checking for permission. Brought Vincent a tennis ball. Not for work, but for play. And when Vincent's arthritic hands fumbled the throw, Chili just waited patiently for another attempt. No frustration. No rigidity. No expectation of perfection. Just patience. Returned. Before I left, a neighbor appeared at the fence. Older woman, leaning on a walker, calling out, Vincent! I made extra arroz con pollo. Chili's head came up. My breath caught. This was the test. A stranger. Approaching. breaking the perimeter. Chili stood. I walked toward the fence. But instead of blocking, instead of positioning himself between Vincent and the potential threat, he did something that rewrote every assumption I'd carried about what was possible. He looked back at Vincent. A glance. A check-in. Is this okay? It's okay, friend, Vincent said quietly. That's Mrs. Torres. She's family. Chili's tail wagged. He approached the fence and let Mrs. Torres scratch his ears through the chain link, his body loose and relaxed, accepting affection from someone he'd assessed and deemed safe, because Vincent had deemed her safe. Trust, delegated. Choice, restored. I drove home as the sun started its descent, my hands steady on the wheel, but my mind replaying everything I'd witnessed. Dr. Chun called 20 minutes into the drive. Vincent told me you visited, she said. What do you think? I stopped at a red light, organizing thoughts that felt too big for words. I think what they did to him was worse than I understood. They didn't just train him. They taught him that his only value was utility, that rest was a weakness, that choice was disobedience. Yes, she said quietly. But Vincent, the light changed. I accelerated slowly. Vincent taught him the opposite. That value isn't earned through suffering. That loyalty doesn't require self-destruction. That he's allowed to check in instead of checking out. He gave him permission to be off duty, Dr. Chun said. That's the rarest gift you can give a dog like Chili. Most people can't tolerate it. They need obedience, the perfect behavior, the visible evidence that they're helping. Vincent didn't need any of that. No, he just needed Chili to be okay. We sat with that for a moment. What shocked everyone, I said finally, speaking the thought that had been forming all afternoon, wasn't what Chili did in that alley, wasn't how he defended the crate, or followed orders, or stayed vigilant through the night. No. What shocked everyone, what still shocks me, is what he finally didn't have to do anymore. Dr. Chen's breath caught. Say that again. He doesn't have to be useful, doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to prove his worth every second of every day. My voice broke. He finally got permission to just be. And that's the ending no one expected. Not rescue, not redemption, just rest. Just rest, Dr. Chun repeated softly. Yes. I pulled into my driveway as dusk settled over the neighborhood. Somewhere across town, Chili was probably still lying in his sunny patch, choosing sleep over vigilance, choosing himself, finally off duty. So here's the thing. My fiancé owes me dinner if we hit 1,000 subscribers this week. But more than that, he owes Chili's story an apology for doubting it would resonate. If this story changed how you think about loyalty, about trauma, about what rescue really means, subscribe. Hit that like button. Comment where you're watching from so I can see how far Chili's story has traveled. And please, share this with someone who needs to remember that the best endings aren't always loud. Sometimes they're just rest. Let's prove that stories like this still matter. See you in the next one.